Death's Door is a very pleasant game. This is a weird thing to say about a game where you play as a reaper sent out to collect the souls of the living, but it is the main adjective I walked away with. This feeling is a culmination of so much. The excellent level design, the character design and art direction, and especially the soundtrack. And these features, combined with the actual gameplay, make for such a unique experience that is hard not to enjoy. Mainly, two people are behind Death's Door. Mark Foster and David Fenn are the two members of their development studio Acid Nerve, and the two are behind much of what makes this game pleasant and good. But they didn't work alone. Multiple other artists were contracted for both the story and much of the art that makes the game so pretty. And with additional support from Devolver Digital, the game launched on all major platforms in 2021, starting with the Xbox and PC in July, the rest in November. I'd never gotten around to playing the duo's first game, Titan Souls, but I vaguely remember hearing pretty good things about it. As for Death's Door, the game kinda snuck up on me, which is weird. Usually these types of indie games pique my interest really early on, but for whatever reason I didn't hear about the game until fairly close to its release. From the get-go I was sold. Honestly, from the words Zelda-like isometric action game, I was sold. As I mentioned earlier, Death's Door is about a Kuro. He works for the organization responsible for bringing in the souls of those who are ready to pass on. Through a series of doors, Reapers are able to go throughout the world and collect their targets. Lately, less and less souls have been coming in, but on this day our Kuro finds he's been tasked with a rarity. A large soul is ready for reaping. A door is opened up for him to teleport to the soul's location, with the warning that if he is unable to return with it, he will grow old and die. It turns out someone else learned about this too. After defeating a well-aged plant monster, a much larger Kuro steals the soul and puts it into the titular Death's Door. He then explains to our protagonist Kuro that long ago he had his own query, but it disappeared behind the door ages ago. But he has a solution. There are 3 other beings with large souls on this island, and collecting them should be enough to break open the door. And this is the main premise of the game. You play as a Kuro, yes, I'll be keeping up this bit for the whole video, on a task to defeat the 3 bosses. Along the way, he'll meet many an interesting character as well as discover the secrets behind this strange land. And the game itself is broken up into 2 main mechanics, exploring the overworld and combat. Combat is by far the thing that you do the most in Death's Door, and it's also impeccably good. Starting out, the Kuro has a trusty sword and magic bow. The sword does decent damage at a decent range and can hit fairly frequently. There are a few other weapons in the game, and I bet they all vary in damage, range, and speed too, but I only used the main sword because I liked it, and the very weak umbrella for an achievement. Oops. The magic bow is the first of 4 spells learned throughout the game, each of which gives the Kuro various ranged abilities. I actually had a bit of trouble getting used to this. First you need to pull down the trigger to aim, then hold the button to fire an arrow. And for the longest time I wanted to just hold down the button and fire, causing many unnecessary hits. Starting out, the Kuro only has 4 magic power or 4 arrows at a time. Once exhausted, he'll need to hit something with a weapon to recharge. And while this limit can be upgraded, later magics use more magic power, so at some point the Kuro will have to get up close and personal. And from getting up close and personal, the Kuro will need to dodge away from oncoming attacks too. He can dodge as many times as he wants, but there is a short cooldown between rolls. So with this, the main way I found myself playing was occasionally firing a magic before running up with my sword and dodging away from their fairly well telegraphed attacks. This didn't always work out well though. Sometimes I dodged too early or too late, or maybe just got swarmed by too many enemies. These situations lead to dying quite a lot, especially given the Kuro only has 4 HP to start. This is a pretty petty complaint, but initially, while the death animation that plays is really funny, during the harder moments of the game where I was just dying over and over, it started to get a bit grating. The animation is fairly long, and in addition to a load time afterwards, I just wanted to get back to playing. Combat encounters vary in size and importance throughout the game, but every path has a lot of it. Most of the areas are dotted with various enemies here or there, sometimes small groups of them. Then certain areas block in the Kro and don't unlock until a few waves of enemies are defeated. These waves are sometimes a bunch of regular enemies, but oftentimes mix in bigger and harder guys, or they could just be a single, real big mini-boss. Finally, there are a few bosses dotted throughout the game, including the 3 major ones as noted earlier, and regardless of the encounter, each one can be equally deadly, depending on how much health the Kro has left. Luckily, for the most part, respawn points usually aren't too far away, so it's always easy to die and come back swinging. The overworld is split up into 4 different areas. There is the main area where the Death's Door is located, and it branches out to the 3 others. Each of these areas is navigable either by walking or from the main door hub. As the Crow explores, he opens up doors throughout the world that lead back to the main office. These new doors become a diegetic fast travel system and are also where the Crow respawns when he dies. And while it's neat that I can walk from door to travel quicker, some of the doors were located a bit too far away from one another and were a bit of a pain to get back to. Also, this is the hub where the Crow can upgrade themselves. Each enemy defeated nets a small amount of souls and can be traded in to power up various aspects such as their speed or their power. Health and magic are upgraded by other means. The world itself starts out linear, but through exploration branches out quite a bit. By defeating groups of enemies and pushing down buttons or pulling levers, new paths open up to new and old locations. This is really fun in the moment, seeing your destination in the distance, winding all around the level, and when you finally get there, not only do you unlock the next place, but you create a shortcut so it's much quicker to get back there. And the whole game does this basically the entire time. It's really top tier design. Unfortunately, these interwoven paths do get a bit confusing if you ever return to an area. Trying to get to a specific spot only to walk around the entire level you haven't seen in a few hours was a little bit annoying. Spread throughout these paths, the Kro can often find seeds and pots. Seeds are one of the earliest collectibles hidden throughout the game, usually hidden around a corner or under some boxes. Planting them grows a fruit thing that, when consumed, is the Kro's sole way of healing. Well, that and dying. While the seeds can be anywhere, the pots are usually placed right before big combat encounters. Other collectibles include trinkets, souls, weapons, and shrines. Trinkets are usually just used to detail the lore of the world, although a couple are used for late game puzzles too. Souls are balls full of a bunch of souls that can be used for upgrading. Weapons are the other weapons in the game, and shrines reward one of 2 different types of gems, where collecting 4 of each upgrades either health or magic. These are all found by exploring the world, and many involve using the various magic abilities to get off the beaten path. Some of these off-beaten paths actually lead to mini-bosses that power up a magic spell, making it even stronger. And without spoiling too much, if it looks like you might get an ability to do something in a very Zelda-like fashion, you'll probably be getting that power-up, with one exception. Throughout the world are these circles in the ground. For the duration of the game, I assumed I would get a late item or power-up that would open them up to me. This is wrong. You can actually interact with these from the very start using an ability that is only expressed once and in a different context. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense, and I accidentally did this move quite a few times, but I never put the pieces together. So if you haven't played Death's Door yet, think about how they're placed, how one might interact with them, and in the end, they really reminded me of Super Mario Sunshine in a very interesting way. The story in the game isn't much more than what I detailed at the top. It's mainly just the quest to open the door, with some interesting moments towards the end and in the post-game. The bulk of the game's writing is communicated through the characters. While none get too much screen time, they're all very endearing. Each of the bosses is understandable in what they're doing, even if they're misguided in their approach. I especially enjoyed the frog's whole personality. Well, loved as in loved to hate. All the side characters have their moments too. The guy with a pot for a head is charming, the man who is very much not being controlled by a squid is pretty funny too, and the gravedigger has such a bittersweet backstory, and I love him. He's not much of a character, but there's also a guy just named Red Shirt, and his fate is pretty obvious. I won't go much into it, but there is a pretty in-depth postgame too. It wraps up some narrative loose ends as well as adding a few more puzzles to do. Some of these puzzles were kinda annoying, others rewarded my knowledge of the map in a fairly satisfying way. Either way, it's not too long, and I only had to look up a few solutions. Unfortunately, the story beats the epilogue added do nothing for me personally, but some of the history it details was pretty neat. As I mentioned at the top, the art and the music are what makes this game a complete package. Sure, great combat goes a really long way, but the aesthetics make it so much more. The art style and art direction are just so good. Each of the environments is pleasing to look at, everything is shaded well, and it all winds up feeling like a gorgeous place. The characters and bosses look just as good. So much about them is told with their designs and animations alone. Pothead's soup spilling out as he bows, or the old witch's stare as you wander her home, do so much to make them feel real. And each character is given this level of detail. There's even a boss that is just a walking castle, and it's fun. Everything is so fun and whimsical, despite the game being thematically so dark. And the music is the cream on top. The score is fully orchestrated with strong piano or maybe a woodwind solo. These soloists are matched well with background strings and percussion. Each area has its own distinct theme that differentiates each area thematically but still keeps the calm vibes throughout. The main leitmotif comes up a lot in very pleasing ways too, sprinkled into various songs as the game progresses. And even during combat, when both the tempo and the percussion pick up, it almost feels designed to keep the player at ease. Death's Door is a really good package. It's only a few hours long, about 8 to beat at once, plus a few more for achievements and the post-game. And it is a good thing that it is short. Nothing ever got old, the combat always felt fresh, and there's a post-game. I love it when they do that. The very pleasing package is an experience I'm really glad I sat down to have. I give Death's Door these little green guys that spawn around the health plants out of 10. Just look at how adorable they are, plus they follow you around and it's really cute. Thanks for watching. If you in some way had a feeling when watching this video, comment it down below, or maybe just rate the video and maybe even subscribe. If you want to follow me on other websites, my links are in the description. And a crow, Jon Snow. That was the reference. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.